Alberta's United Conservative Party leadership race has 7 confirmed candidates running and will be choosing its new leader to replace Jason Kenney on October the 6th. Now, one of those candidates vying for the premier seat is Todd Loewen, an MLA from Northern Alberta. Welcome to Bridge City News, Todd. So great to have you on today.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so tell us a bit about yourself and what it is that what fired you up to join this race to become the new leader of the UCP and the premier of Alberta. It's a big job.
Yes, it is a big job, but I've been looking forward to this opportunity to get into this leadership race. I'd never envisioned myself as running for premier in the past. But what we've seen in the last few years, I think, has left Albertans wanting a new direction. And I feel that there's a lot of Albertans that haven't been heard. And I feel that I can represent a lot of Albertans that have had those feelings. And it's an opportunity to get things back on track in Alberta. And I think Albertans are looking for something. And we have a good group of candidates that are running for leadership right now. And I believe that we'll be able to give those options to people to choose from. And again, looking forward to this leadership race, looking forward to being selected as the Premier of Alberta at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, the UCP seems to be a very divided party. So what will it take to make the Conservatives united once again?
Well, I think we're already on track for that right now. We've had a divisive leader in the past, and he's leaving his post, and that's why we have the leadership race going on right now. So I think a lot of that has already started to come together. I believe that as we travel Alberta and engage Albertans, that will give us a chance for Albertans to feel like they've had been listened to and had a voice. When we look forward to the leadership race here, and I think there's an opportunity to bring Albertans together, and I think that we can bring this party back together and be able to represent Alberta going forward and into the future.
Okay, so Todd, a big part of your campaign is obviously to put Alberta first, right? So, and I believe that certainly resonates with rural Albertans, especially now that the federal government says it wants to basically force farmers to reduce fertilizer use in order to meet its climate targets. So what's wrong with that approach? Would you approach that differently, and how would you respond to the Prime Minister about this as Premier?
Well, we have a real problem here in Canada. I think when we look at our dealings with Ottawa and Confederation, it's a broken system. We see Ottawa trying to interfere in the jurisdiction of Alberta and trying to push things on Albertans that Albertans just are not interested. And that's across the province. The latest, of course, is the fertilizer issue with the 30% reduction. We see the carbon tax. We see things where they've interfered with the tech mines and with property rights too. There's a lot of issues with our deal with Ottawa, and we've been really good at writing strongly worded letters that the Prime Minister has been able to crumple up and throw in the garbage, but we need to actually do something now. I think we need to start taking action immediately, and we've been kicking the can down the road. We've been having panels travel Alberta. We've been having reports drawn up, but we haven't been doing anything. And I think we need to start, and I will, as Premier, start immediately working towards some of the things that Albertans would like to see, which one of them would be our own pension plan that would save Albertans $3 to $4 billion a year, and our own Alberta Constitution.
Wow. Okay. So with that said, do you agree with the proposed Alberta Sovereignty Act?
The Sovereignty Act is basically saying no when Ottawa is infringing on our rights as Albertans. And so I agree that we need to be able to say no, but I would rather focus on working towards the things that we know we can do. We can look towards Quebec and see the things that they have already done, and we can work towards those things ourselves. Again, pension plan, employment insurance, collecting our own provincial taxes, provincial police force, all those things that we can do without having a constitutional crisis, without having a fight with Ottawa. But having those things would give us an opportunity to show Ottawa that we mean business, and that we can then be in a position of strength rather than weakness when we deal with them.
Okay, so as Premier, what's your opinion? Would MLAs be free to speak their mind, or should they maybe keep opposing opinions to themselves? How do you see it?
Well, MLAs are elected by their constituents to represent them, and I feel that they should be able to do that freely and openly, because that's how democracy works. In the past, we've seen that suppressed. And, I stuck up for my constituents. I represented my constituents when I wrote a letter to Jason Kenney over a year ago. And and that's what I would bring forward. I would be doing the same thing as Premier of Alberta as far as representing Albertans in that same way, as strong and as forward as possible.
Okay. Now, one of the biggest dividers in our province is how the COVID pandemic was and is being handled. And there are many different opinions on this, of course. So where do you stand on this? Would you impose lockdowns or vaccine mandates if another wave were to hit us?
No, I've opposed the vaccine mandates and the vaccine passports and things like that right from the start. It's proven that it hasn't worked, and we've also seen that the government's had to backtrack on all those things anyways. Albertans have a right to choose those things. And I think the handling of the pandemic was a serious issue that this government faced. And I understand that there were some tough decisions, and those were tough decisions. But again, over and over again, we've seen flip-flops. We've seen direction that wasn't that Albertans wouldn't agree with, and so we needed to work better on that and do better with that. But of course, when I look back to this government's term, the Albertans were losing faith in this government long before COVID even hit, and so that's the issue. A lot of it had to do with our dealings with Ottawa. So as much as COVID is an issue, there's other big issues that are going on in Alberta that have caused Albertans to lose trust in this government.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I understand that you would enact legislation to prevent compelled disclosure of vaccine status to third parties.
Yes, absolutely. Nobody should have to disclose their private health information to anybody. When we go into a business, I don't know where we got to the point where we would have to disclose our personal health information to private individuals in a private business. And I think it puts those businesses in a bad situation too, where they're there to collect information that's private and shouldn't be disseminated in any way. So again, we shouldn't be in that position at all. And again, putting those businesses in that position, I think, is a very very dangerous place.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Of course, affordability is one of your key campaign issues, and with soaring inflation continuing, I mean, we're all feeling it right now at the grocery store, at the gas tank, you name it. So what would you do to make life more affordable for Albertans?
Well, I think one thing we can do is we can be reducing personal income taxes for the middle class, and I would like to see a reduction in the small business tax too, going from 2% down to 0. So our small businesses have really suffered. The individuals that have, some of them just themselves as an employee, or maybe a dozen employees, they've suffered a lot through the last 2 years, and I believe they need a break. But when we look at all the other issues that we have going on in Alberta, we have enormous debt. We have $112 billion of debt, and paying $2.7 billion a year in interest. And as interest rates rise, we'll have more and more issues with that. And those are things that take away the money that can be used to pay for the services that we need, that Albertans expect.
Okay, now Todd, the Alberta oil and gas industry often gets labeled as a dirty oil villain, and it seems to be targeted again and again by federal regulations designed to create that uphill battle for the energy sector. So is this something that you would like to see changed?
Yeah, obviously we have the cleanest and most efficient. We have good safety records. We have good human rights records, obviously, in Alberta and Canada. And our oil and gas should be used throughout the world to displace some of the oil, the true dirty oil, and the oil that from dictatorships and countries that don't have good human rights records. When we look at what's happening in Europe right now, and we see Europe held hostage by some of these countries that we could be shipping oil to replace some of that. We see that there's a lot of issues there. We need to be able to have access to the markets, and we've been restricted by some of the federal government regulations, and that needs to stop. We live in this country together. We need to have access to those markets. It seems like the Eastern Canada sure would like to have the revenue from our oil and gas sector, but they're not interested in seeing pipelines come across. But we need to be able to push back on that and make that happen. Again, we need to have a stronger position in Confederation than we have right now, and we need to start taking action on that immediately.
Mm-hmm. So what can be done to change this and maybe even bring jobs back to our province?
Well, again, I think we need to have a stronger negotiating position with Ottawa when it comes to some of that pushback. Again, we have international pressures too, and I understand that too. But again, when we look at the other jurisdictions that are producing oil. We do have a very clean, environmentally clean oil, and we have the standards here that are second to none, and we're getting better all the time too. It's not like we're standing back on our laurels and just puffing up our chests and talking about how good we are. We continue to do better all the time, and that's something I think that should be recognized around the world. And we haven't probably done as good a job as we could as far as making that known, but we need to work towards that. And again, we need to hold the federal government to account when they start restricting our opportunity for our province to get our products to market.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about healthcare for a moment. Lots to talk about here. So we all know about the doctor shortage in Alberta. My own doctor is leaving the province. So what needs to change to increase physician availability?
Well, we see that especially in rural Alberta, but I'm sure it's a concern sometimes in the cities too, as far as the shortage of doctors. Rural Alberta, we see emergency rooms closing down all the time. And this has been an ongoing problem, but I think it's actually gotten worse. And what I would like to see is we have a post-secondary education system here in Alberta that I don't believe is graduating as many people as we need to serve our needs as a society, because we end up actually importing doctors from all over the world. And don't get me wrong, myself, I don't know if I've ever had an Alberta educated doctor as a family doctor. So we love our doctors that have come out from outside the country. They're doing a great job for us. But again, we have a post-secondary education system that's subsidized heavily by the Alberta taxpayer, and it's not providing the educated people that we need. And I think that's a serious problem. Another problem we have is when our students can't get into our colleges and universities here in Alberta, they sometimes either choose not to go into that field, or they go elsewhere in the world to get their education. And then the process to come back is convoluted, time consuming, and restricts their opportunity to get back to Alberta and actually come back to work and serve Albertans. So a lot of them end up going elsewhere in the world again. And so there's several issues there, but I believe we can fix this problem. We have plenty of intelligent people here in Alberta that could provide our healthcare needs. We just have to allow them the opportunity to do it.
Okay, what about decreasing wait times and increasing hospital bed capacity?
Yeah, for sure. When we look at the system that we have right now, where we're spending compared to other jurisdictions near the top of the pack, and what we're getting for services is at near the bottom of the pack. We have to clean up the inefficiencies in the system. It isn't about how much money we spend; it's how we spend the money that we are spending. And there's no excuse to be waiting 2-3 years for hip and knee surgeries, waiting months and months for an MRI, and waiting hours for ambulances. We're spending money and we're not getting the services that we need. I see that we need a severe overhaul of the AHS. That's a system that we brought ourselves to a centralized system when we previously had the regional system. And I think that's proven to been a failure, because we haven't seen an improvement in services. We haven't seen a reduction in costs. So we need to go back, I believe, to a regional decision-making process and have that overhaul of AHS, so that we can start getting what we deserve as far as results for the money we pay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Todd, why should UCP members vote for you? What makes you different or stand out from the other candidates?
Well, myself, I consider myself just a regular guy. I'm not a smooth-talking politician. I'm just here to serve Albertans, and I've stood up for my constituents in the past. And I paid a price for that when I asked Jason Kenney to resign, and I was removed from caucus. And I plan to take that same strength and that same intestinal fortitude to represent Albertans and do that. So I believe I have something to offer to Albertans. And again, it's when we look at this process, members of the party will make a decision. October 6th, we will have a new premier, and I hope Albertans and party members will choose me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, with the latest polls coming out showing that Danielle Smith, Travis Taves, and Brian Jean sort of in the lead right now, if anything ever kind of push came to shove, would you consider dropping out and putting your support behind any of those candidates, or are you going to stay in this till the end?
No, I plan to stay in here right to the end. I think there's the polls are always interesting, of course, especially when polling is done outside of the membership, and only the membership of the party will be able to vote. So I think those polls may It may be a little deceiving off the top, and I think I'm doing fairly well as far as the campaign is concerned. And again, we have a long ways to go and lots of work to do. And but I'm looking forward to it. And I've been traveling across Alberta. I think since the campaign started, I put about 25,000 kilometers on my truck, and I'll continue doing that and covering the ground across Alberta from one end to the other.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Todd. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Todd Loewen is a candidate in the UCP leadership race. The party will be choosing its new leader on October the 6th.